There are some similarities between the current uprisings and earlier moments in our nation's history. So, for example, 1968, following the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., there were certainly widespread protests, outbursts of anger across the nation. That was a particular moment. Or even if we look at 1992, following the beating of Rodney King in Los Angeles, there was certainly a community response and even a national response to the beating. But this moment is distinct, I think, for lots of reasons. I would just emphasize a couple. The first is just really thinking about who's involved in the protests. Often historically, certainly in the 1950s and 60s, and even in the 1990s too, within the context of the Rodney King situation, we find that Black activists are really leading these movements, and they are predominantly the ones involved in these movements and these protests. I'm not suggesting that Black activists aren't crucial to this particular moment, but it's telling that this is a very diverse moment. The uprisings are very diverse. If you take a look at what's happening in New York City, in Philadelphia, really any place, any city across the nation, it's clear that the people at the forefront, they are Black, but they're also Asian, they're also Latinx. They just represent a wide range of racial and ethnic backgrounds, and I think that is important and certainly unique, I would say, and significant in this particular moment.
It's really important to contextualize maybe how significant these protests have been. Since the start of these, we've seen protests that are probably bigger in scale and bigger in scope than just about anything within living memory. You know, people are comparing these to the 1960s protests, and for good reason. We're seeing these not just in large cities, but even in small and medium-sized places in the United States. It's really actually impressive how many communities are engaged currently in these protests. And potentially as a result of all of this, we've seen some pretty rapid and some pretty large shifts in American public opinion. Specifically, the number of Americans who have an unfavorable view of the police shot up 13 points in just a single week. This is a really substantial change. These are big societal level concepts and institutions that we're talking about. People don't change their opinion about these things on a week-by-week basis. To see a 13-point shift, I think, again, speaks to just how substantial and how significant these protests have been.
The videos and the fact that you've had 3 to 4 and continue to accumulate incidents. So it hasn't stopped. And just when you think, well, maybe this is not going to happen anymore or for a while, we saw during the protests they had incidents, and even on Sundays. So this is something that will be ongoing in terms of what people are concerned about. And the protests, I think, elevated this issue to the forefront. It reprioritized the issue agenda for the presidential candidates to a large degree. So that definitely, I think, changed the focus, the tempo of the campaign that people did not expect. Because for the past 3 months, it's been all COVID. Then this happened.